It's a hard lesson to learn that just because of the fact that I am Jewish and I go to temple, someone could want to hurt me or hurt my friends and family.
Anti-Semitism right now in the United States and around the world, on the right and on the left, is just very scary. What happened in the Holocaust could happen again.
I never thought I would live to see a day in this country where I would wake up to news that a synagogue had been bombed and 12 people were killed.
This is how it starts, and we just have to be very aware of it.
People just need somebody to put down. Is that what it is? I don't get it.
I wish that people understood, I guess, something like what I love about Judaism. I wish they could feel the love for Judaism that I feel.
We never thought it could happen in our country at this time. Shootings in synagogues, neo-Nazis rallying in the streets, arson at small synagogues while rabbis and their families slept inside, cemeteries desecrated with swastikas and other hateful graffiti, Jews being kicked out of rallies for displaying a rainbow flag with a Jewish star in the middle because being a Zionist, a lover of Israel, could not be tolerated. Liberal Jews feeling they have to choose between espousing values they hold dear and participating in events which challenge their Jewish sensibilities. Not to mention all the assaults and anti-Semitic propaganda throughout Europe. The memory of the Holocaust is fresh in the minds of survivors and us children and grandchildren whose relatives were brutally murdered. What does it feel like to be Jewish in America today? What do we want people to know about our faith? What do we want others to understand about our connection with Israel? Today, Robert Trestan, Executive Director of the Anti-Defamation League of New England, will talk about the rise of anti-Semitism. Members of Temple Shalom Emeth in Burlington, Massachusetts, will share what they wish people would understand about what it's like to be Jewish, what it's like to be living at this moment in time, and why they feel a special connection to the people and land of Israel. Welcome to Spiritually Speaking.
Though the time be far, I know that come it will, when each nation shall each other bless, and peace the earth shall fill. God shall reign over the earth on that day. God shall be one, your name it shall be one.
Robert, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and I just wanted to begin by asking you if you could tell us a little bit about the state of the Jewish community today in our area. Is there a rise in anti-Semitism?
We have been tracking anti-Semitic incidents since 1978. The year with the highest number that we tracked in Massachusetts was in 2017. The second highest was in 2018. So between 2017 and 2018, we saw a 19% decrease, but we are still at historic numbers. Probably close to 3 times the number we were, in 2015, 2016.
Why the spike? Why the increase?
The forces of hatred out there are feeling a little more empowered, a little more emboldened to be public and to act on those beliefs, those feelings of hatred. And in this country, it's legal to hate, but it is illegal, it is criminal to take that out and to harm someone or their property because of it. And so we're seeing a real increase in the dissemination of hatred. That could be through flyering, that could be through graffiti, that could be through harassment online. So people are using their words and they're using different actions to disseminate hatred and get it into the mainstream. What's happening in our community, the greater Boston area, is really a reflection of what we're seeing in other parts of the country. The spike that we see is consistent with what's happening globally. And in some ways, we're not as far off right now as The Jewish communities in England and in France are experiencing a serious increase with respect to real personal safety issues. Increasingly in Massachusetts, it's becoming dangerous to be Jewish out in public. And we've had a number of scary examples of this where Jews were specifically targeted for no other reason other than the fact that they were Jewish. The Chabad in Arlington, somebody had tried to set it on fire. And then about 5-6 days later, a second fire attempt was made at the same Chabad. And within an hour or so of that fire, another Chabad in Needham. And that's really serious. Now we're talking about an attempted arson at a house of worship. And it's also a house of worship where people live. People were inside, families were inside of these buildings. We also saw a rabbi in Peabody, Massachusetts, who was on his walking to synagogue on Shabbat with his wife, and a pickup truck pulled over beside them, and the people inside the vehicle screamed a number of anti-Semitic remarks at them and threw pennies at them from the truck. And it's clear this happened for no other reason other than they were Jewish on a Saturday walking to synagogue. And earlier this spring in Fall River, Massachusetts, 59 headstones were desecrated. But they weren't just damaged. People took the time to write anti-Semitic statements on the actual headstones. That's not just graffiti, that's a message to the community.
The examples of Pittsburgh and Poway.
And we have two tragic examples of synagogues where people went in armed with the sole intent to kill Jews. So we should be concerned. And we are definitely seeing a change. We are living through a change in how Jews are treated and perceived. And so we need to be vigilant. But that's balanced out with, this country was founded on religious freedom. And so as Jews, we need to continue to practice our faith. I think we need to make sure that our houses of worship are welcoming but safe. And as Jews in America, we need to be vigilant about our security, but we should not be intimidated to stop being who we are. We should always be proud of who we are.
In terms of Israel, how do we tease out what is coming from the left in particular, what is anti-Israel and what is anti-Semitic?
Well, legitimate criticism of the Israeli government is legitimate criticism of a government, just like there's legitimate criticism of our government or any other government in the world. Where you start to cross the line is when people deny Israel's right to exist, to deny the Jewish people the right to a homeland, to treat Israel differently than other countries, to demonize and delegitimize Israel as a country and the people of Israel. There you're starting to cross lines into anti-Semitism.
Thanks so much for joining us, and now we'll continue on to learn more about Jews and Judaism and how they feel about anti-Semitism and what's going on in the world today.
My obligation as a proud Jew is to be honest about my Judaism, to tell people about it, to provide them happily with answers that they'd like to hear, because I'd rather have someone be informed than be misinformed and then let that misinformation lead to hate.
One of the really important things to me about being Jewish is the moral and ethical worldview.
I feel a connection to the Jewish people, to the traditions, to the history. And when you meet another Jew, even though it's not your family, as in your nuclear family, it's family. And there's an instant connection that I really value.
People just expect to be able to look at someone and tell whether they're Jewish. I think also people will just assume that everyone's Christian.
The idea of God itself is a question that people can choose to find their own answers to, but to be a good person and to be moral in this world is really core.
We don't believe in Jesus, but we know of Jesus.
When you're Jewish, like, you're always aware that you're Jewish in a Christian world. Like, your religion is something that you definitely think about.
The first question always is, well, do you believe in Santa? And no, I don't believe in Santa. Both of my parents are Jewish, and I've been brought up celebrating Hanukkah for my whole entire life.
I think Christmas is a wonderful holiday, and I used to celebrate it with gusto at my in-laws' house, but it's not my holiday. And I feel like, for people to understand that it isn't my holiday.
December was always a hard month for me, and even still. I like the summertime better because it's hard dealing with all the Christmas stuff.
There are a lot of Jews with many different ideas. Different ideas on Israel, different ideas on Judaism, different ideas on being religious. There's not one stock answer.
When you meet someone who you don't know, and then you find out they're Jewish, it's just cool because Judaism is not the most, common religion. It's not uncommon, but it's not as common as something like Christianity. And so you see that, and it's just extra special.
The whole business about the money thing, mercenaries, not generous, not giving people. Everything in our history points to exactly the opposite.
We are not all intelligent. I am, but not everyone. We are not all rich. We are not trying to take over the world.
We contribute a lot, that our country depends very heavily on Jewish contributions in, I think, vast disproportion to our numbers.
I've told people about my bar mitzvah and stuff, and then they're like, oh, so you didn't have to work for it, you just had a party.
Have to do months and months of intense studying, and it involves learning a whole nother language that doesn't even resemble English whatsoever, having its own separate characters and sounds.
Me and my sister are one of the only people that are Jewish, so coming here and being able to do things with Jewish people is fun, and just being able to share experiences.
Being Jewish separates us religiously from other faiths, but in some small way we share similar beliefs, and I think people should just realize that.
How did your Judaism change after Charlottesville?
And that just woke me up like a lightning bolt. And I realized I'm not going to ignore this anymore. I want to be a part of a synagogue. I want to be part of a Jewish community. I want to have Jewish friends. I want to identify it in that way. It made me realize that all these myths that we've just been talking about are deeply held by a lot of people. They believe things that are manifestly false, and when given free rein, they will let that stuff out. And it's very poisonous, and it's very, very hard to overturn.
No matter how much Jews have assimilated into different countries and cultures, it just keeps coming back, the anti-Semitism and the persecution. And so even though I am not personally persecuted in this country, in my life, and my advantages that I have, I'm not sure that will always be the case.
Although personally I don't face anti-Semitism in school, I know it's around, and that's something to be mindful of, and it's definitely scary how just the stories of, that there are swastikas in school, and that just some of the comments, when you're learning about the Holocaust, some kids will say under their breath, and it's just scary. And then to see, all the shootings around the world in temples, not only just Judaism, of course, but with other religions.
I never truly believed that neo-Nazism would rise, that there would be a rebirth of it, that I would have to be concerned.
Some conversations that I overheard from some other girls on Birthright where they were saying, after we went to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Israel, they were saying that the political climate's never been this unstable since the Holocaust, and now it is, and if it were going to happen again, it would be in a time like this. And I wasn't necessarily thinking that the Jews would be the target the next time, but there's currently genocides and things going on, and I guess that something important to me is like to try to keep stuff like that from happening.
And aware that there have been pockets of growing anti-Semitism in Europe, and it is unbelievably distressing, and very makes me so sad that this should be rising again, and that we don't have leaders who are standing up and saying, this is wrong, this is not acceptable, this is not what we as a people stand for.
After the Pittsburgh shooting, we had a service at the temple here where we were able to all to come together as a community. It was probably one of the biggest outings at the temple I've seen in a very long time, where people came and we all came together and we all prayed for the people that were lost in the shooting or that were impacted by it. And that was a night that I will always remember, because it was a night where the whole community of Jews and even non-Jews were able to come together and feel for Jews in other parts of the world.
Whether or not you're talking about Pittsburgh or you're talking about Poway or you're talking about the shootings at the schools, we're in a crisis. This country is in a crisis.
Hate is hate. And as long as you espouse hate of any population, you are not the kind of leader that I want to embrace.
There's just a lack of understanding of the Jewish community. People making comments not knowing the true religion. And I think that people should educate themselves more before making comments and generalizations.
I've never felt so at home in a foreign country before. Like England, France, Italy, all those places, they were lovely and I had a good time, but I didn't feel at home anywhere else the way I did in Israel.
I don't think people understand the depth of what drives us to believe in Israel, to believe in the traditions the way that we do. I mean, there's been so much persecution, so much discrimination, so much hatred, and so many Jews dying, that Israel is not just a piece of land. It's a place where we can be safe, where we can be Jewish, where we can be a people.
One of my close friends in college is Jordanian, and so it's kind of like understanding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and like what my opinion on it is, while caring about the Palestinians but also still being a Jew and being pro-Israel.
I want Israel to exist, but I have a lot of discomfort with many of the government policies and the way that they treat the Arabs and the Palestinians as second-class citizens, and sometimes worse. So I find that to be a challenge, because there's this conflict of where's, how to be supportive and how to fight for what I think is important in my values.
I strongly believe in Zionism. I strongly believe in the Jewish homeland. I strongly think that Jews need a home based on the history that we've all been through. And that's non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean either that they have the right to demonize other people either. I think the settlement policy in the West Bank is awful. That's my personal opinion. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That you can fight against that, absolutely. But to brand the entire community, the entire country, and try to punish the entire country for that, I think is not a useful strategy.
My trip leader, Golan, were saying, yeah, I was sitting with Palestinians while we were at the Dead Sea, and we had a really good conversation and took a selfie together, and this man named Neil Lazarus came and spoke to us and was telling us a story about sitting at a gas station waiting for his car to get fixed, and he was with two Palestinians and a Hasidic Jew, and they had a good conversation and were telling jokes. And what I'm seeing is that the civilians get along, but then the politics don't. And it's really complicated because, you just want everyone to be friends because it seems like they have the capacity to be.
Some people can make rude comments about the religion itself or events we have faced, such as the Holocaust or the shootings. But in the end, even though these are challenges, I always try to sort of point out that I am a Jew and they're making these rude comments in front of me, and I sort of use that as an advantage, and everyone will look down upon them.
Personally, what I try to do, I try to make known, like Massimo said, that I am Jewish, and my friends, a lot of them actually do find it extremely interesting and want to come to temple with me or want to know about my holiday traditions, and that's something that I really love, being able to educate my friends on my religion and hearing about their religions.
I think a lot of people are resisting those what I think are evil impulses and fighting back. So I'm encouraged I belong to a couple of social justice groups, and I feel like people are really thinking about how to make this place, Burlington, the United States, a place where everyone does feel welcome.
My hope is that this is a pendulum and that it will swing away from it.
I am hopeful, basically, but I do think some things have got to change. I think we have to have leadership in the Oval Office that shows respect for people. We don't have that now.
I really think that conversations are so important, and looking out for the people around you. I think that sociology, honestly, is really important in making sure that that doesn't happen again, so that you can be within a group of people thinking one way and go, wow, I don't actually believe in this, I'm just thinking that way because the group is, and groupthink is taking over me, and the power of that is corrupting what I actually believe.
It would be nice if people could just all come together and realize that at the end of the day we all still love something about our own religions.
At the end of it all, we're really not different. Our similarities are much greater than our differences.
Thanks so much for joining us. The Jewish people began their journey having survived their persecution as slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. We have survived those who hate us for millennia. Our hope springs eternal, that we can overcome hate and prejudice. We pray at every service, Oseh Shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'al kol Yisrael. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens cause peace to descend on us, on all Israel, our country, and all the peoples of the earth. Amen. Shalom, salam, shanti, peace.
Wherever you go, there's always someone Jewish. You're never alone when you say you're a Jew. So when you're not home and you're somewhere